So these points are going to give us a better understanding of the mechanics of our inner world. So point number one is the soul is the invisible center of identity. The soul is the unseen core of who you are. It is where your mind, your will, and your emotions live. It is where worship flows, warfare happens, and where God does his deepest work. So God is going to deal with you at the level of your soul. And you're going to even experience warfare when you are learning new patterns, healthier patterns, and healthy habits, and breaking old unproductive cycles. It's going to happen at the level of your soul. Point number two, you are spirit, soul, and body. Each, the spirit, soul, and body have their distinct function. The spirit connects you to God. The body connects you to the world, but the soul bridges the two. The soul is the connector between the spirit as well as the body. The soul is what interprets revelation, it steers your decisions, and it carries your convictions. Point number three, the soul is the interpreter between heaven and earth. Your spirit receives truth, your body expresses action, but your soul translates both worlds. When unaligned, it becomes vulnerable to distortion. So when you are unaligned, when you're not possessing your soul through patience, when you're not possessing your soul, when you're unaligned from the will of God, from what God has set for you to do, then you risk or become vulnerable to distortion, which means you're not seeing things clearly, you're not seeing things properly, which means you cannot make proper choices and proper decisions. Point number four, the soul has three components, and it is the mind, the will, and the emotions. The mind's job, or the mind should be renewed daily. Your job is to renew your mind daily. Your job is also to surrender your will, and your job is also to steward your emotions. Point number five is the soul gets lost because it learns to hide. You see, you can function publicly, but be fractured privately. The soul is always whispering to us. It's whispering, for us to get ourselves in check, to check that this thing is bothering us, this thing is going to hinder us, this thing is going to lead to us being unproductive. So we must listen to those whispers, because it's whispering beneath performance. But left unchecked, it adapts under pressure as well as hide behind giftings and performances. Point number six, the soul fragments through unhealed trauma. Trauma embeds itself in patterns, in reflexes, and in perception. It distorts identity and relationships until it is confronted and transformed. So unhealed trauma can ruin your life. It embeds itself. It becomes not who you are, but who you think you are. And so, a lot of times people say, well, this is just how I am. This is just the way that I am. But could it be that is some unhealed trauma that has embedded itself in your patterns, in your reflexes, and in your perception? And then we have point number seven, which is the soul fragments through undisciplined thoughts. Thoughts left untrained will begin to drift. They drift into anxiety, confusion, and compromise. Things that you would not normally put up with, you begin to put up with when your thoughts are undisciplined. And this renewal begins when the mind is anchored, not just active. So we're always thinking. You cannot not think. So, but it's not enough for you to just be thinking. You want to have your thoughts anchored. Where are you anchoring your thoughts? Your thoughts should not just be active. Point number eight, the soul fragments through unchecked emotions. Emotions unsubmitted to truth. Emotions unsubmitted to truth become reactions that override wisdom. They cloud your judgment and they damage your relationships. This is what unchecked emotions do. They override wisdom. They cloud your judgment and they damage your relationships. So you want to check those emotions. And then point number 9, which is our last point, is the soul fragments through unyielded decisions. Choices made without surrender will lead to misalignment. Choices made without surrendering will lead to misalignment. Yielding, hear me, yielding is not weakness, it is wisdom and worship. So when you yield your decisions to the will of God, when you yield your decisions to best practices, this is a form of worship, worship to the Creator. Let's do an overview of these points that we discuss that highlights or helps us to understand a little bit more about the inner mechanics of our being. Point number 1 was the soul is the invisible center of identity. Point number 2, you are spirit, soul, and body, each with a distinct function. Point number 3, the soul is the interpreter between heaven and earth. Point number 4, the soul has 3 components: mind, will, and emotions. Point number 5, the soul gets lost because it learns to hide. Point number 6, the soul fragments through unhealed trauma. Point number 7, the soul fragments through undisciplined thoughts. Point number 8, the soul fragments through unchecked emotions. And point number 9, the soul fragments through unyielded decisions.